Hello. Thank you for joining us today. We have a very special guest, and I'm excited about it. As we talked before, we use the coping skills as a family way before natural freedom was even considered. And as a result, our kids were asked to do some of the coping skills as well. So today we have our oldest child, Leticia Jeffers, here to join us. And we thought it'd be really interesting and fun to interview her as a perspective as a teenager, being asked to use new coping skills. And so, would you like to add anything to that, Leticia?
Hi, my name is Leticia. I am the oldest daughter, the only daughter. Um, I, yeah, there's a long, list of coping skills that we learned, in our teenage years. Um, Willingly, not so much. Um, However, it was during a lot of trials and tribulations our family was enduring, and that was and adversities that really kind of spearheaded your research into research slash deep dive into exploring options of what that looked like. I can remember trips to the library, having to print things off, um, and really diving into that. I think that was actually more maybe in my even my preteen age as well. Because I was, yeah, I think so, if I recall right. Because we started kind of really diving into the yoga, and we were very confused and concerned at first what was even happening.
Well, we had a lot of really high hurdles to get over in life, and it's at a point in a teenager's life that that's not what they want to hear.
No, and they're also going through a lot of their hormone, like a lot of hormones and changes, and trying to figure out who and developmentally who you are, and that spanned, and so it definitely alongside of the trials and tribulations and trying to figure out the shift also and the parental aspects, trajectory of skills that we had already been taught of growing up on a farm and those hard making sure those ethics and morals that we were taught as a foundation. And I think it kind of bled into that later on as a fuller understanding once we grasped the aspect and really understood where things were going. But in the moment, as a teenager, you're like, what in the world is my parent doing? Like, what? I remember walking down the stairs and you were doing the the fire breathing, and I was like, what do you have on the TV? And not understanding Kundalini yoga and the beautiful aspects within the turban and what it means. But also going from being growing up in this rural area and really not understanding anything more than what we had been exposed to. It was very jar. It was a almost a culture shock. Seeing that on the TV, like, what is my mom having yoga on the TV for? But and then it bled into the coaching aspects of into for 4-H and writing and I remember our our entire 4-H group sitting at or standing with our horses at I can't remember if it was a show or a clinic that it started at, but we were standing in a circle all doing tree pose and deep breathing and belly breaths right before we got on our horses and taking the time to ground ourselves. And I can recall that bleeding not only into our um, understanding and what we were doing outside of our own selves, but also into us as athletes at that time, or and learning how to evolve into the various sports that we went into, and that bled into that as well.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah,
Hmm.
And I think a lot of it comes from the fact of what we had done had worked up to a point, but it was no longer working. So we was searching for something else that would be able to ground us and give us peace and allow us to move back into living.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. And I think that incorporating, because I even remember trying all the different oils that you came home with, like, here, try this one, here, try this one, not understanding like they actually had like more meaning to them. But we're just kind of like exploring and that process and really understanding and diving into the books and what each benefit of each um various herb and also the oils kind of mint in that space. And I can't remember when you did Qigong. I think it was later on that you explored Qigong as well. And I remember you were doing that on the hill and like trying to figure out that place. Because yoga really wasn't your thing there, Dad. I recall that. And you kind of sat into the Qigong aspect a little bit more than the yoga.
he did try it.
He did. I'll give him that.
You gave it an effort.
Well, and I think that's a huge part of it is we got to remember that one thing does not work for all,
Right.
and we have to find what settles in our heart and what works for us.
Yeah. And I also in various stages of life too.
Right.
Right.
What
Very
it
true.
Yeah.
means. I think
So back to
I'm
your teenage years,
hmm
you kind of shared your first impression. Thank you. That
Uh-huh.
was my first
Very
question.
abrupt.
Um,
Abrupt and confusing.
so so would you say that the yoga on the TV screen was your first introduction to some of these new coping skills, or do you remember
I- it's
earlier?
it's my first core memory of it, I will say. I don't know
Okay.
if it really was, but it's what I remember.
So, and you already answered the question, were you interested in learning these coping skills?
Absolutely not. Not at the time. Which is very ironic considering I'm TCTSY facilitator trained now, but but as a teenager, absolutely not.
Well, do you remember the very first time you actually used one of the coping skills independently on your own without like mom or dad saying, "Hey, we need to practice this to."
It was it was at a show, at a horse show. I remember because we would do the the singing, when you're going around the outside of the arena. The judge can't hear you singing on the outside of the arena, especially if you're singing really close to yourself. But I remember it was in showmanship, and I had Casey, which was one of our first horses that really kind of led into natural freedom that not very many people, actually nobody got to work with.
Right.
Um, but 4-H wise they did. But it was with him that I was getting ready with the showmanship and I utilized the breathing before I did the pattern. And so yeah, I do remember that. And even I remember with William when I had to take William for as a replacement for Scoot when Scoot got hurt.
Hmm.
Um, and he we really I used my breathing then and did all my breathing and we ended up getting I messed up one part. We would have gotten grand champion, but we got reserve champion, but that was on me and I forgot one piece of the pattern, but he did
And
amazing.
I,
It was a very beautiful pattern and I remember feeling it.
and it was a very distinct memory for me as well as a mom, because it was you weren't in the arena if you remember right. It had been
Mhm.
too muddy, and they used the racetrack,
Mhm.
and he was young. He was very
He was,
young,
I think, a
2 year old,
yearling or a 2 year old.
yearling,
No, I think
yeah,
he was a 2 year old.
and very green. And I remember as a mom thinking, it's the very first time I realized the power of the co-regulation and that I needed to do my breaths so that you and him could do your work.
Yeah.
I remember distinctly going, I have to use my coping skills to help her be and him to find their space. So that's very interesting that that was one of your first memories as well. So thanks. That's cool.
It is
Um,
very cool.
yeah.
I think I actually remember you saying I remember you in some capacity saying something about that you had to really regulate yourself, but it wasn't those words at the time. I can't remember the exact words, but in your own
You
way saying,
stepped away to breathe.
yes,
I
that's
did.
what you said, I think.
And that's,
Mhm.
I mean, but that's the importance, I think, of everything we do nowadays is we have to learn when to step away and breathe before we re-engage.
Hmm.
Yeah, and just because we step away and breathe doesn't mean that we've disengaged. We just had to separate ourselves a little bit from the situation so we're not flooding it.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, well, that's cool. Um, okay. Do you use any of the coping skills that you were begrudgingly taught at in your teenage years um, in your daily life now?
Oh yeah, I even use them today at work.
Would you like to share what you do?
I use my breathing before responding to a nurse.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. No, I do. I utilize them in everyday capacity. From my mornings when I have stuck in traffic and really want to be somewhere. I use my breathing and my coping skills and listen to music and all of the things that I have in my toolbox to be in the moment as much as possible. And then also share those tools with others in my positions and when I have the opportunity to.
Is it always easy?
Absolutely not.
Just wanted to check in there.
Some days are easier than others, especially working at the hospital and being able, because I often go from one conversation that is a hard conversation with, such as a patient, just in for um, waiting on inpatient site placement, to then another patient trying to figure out how to get home health services at home, to then another conversation where they're finding out their loved one is going to be like they're in their final days and going to be going on hospice. And so I can go within a 30-minute span, go from those three conversations, and I have to really, really utilize my skills between each of those conversations and each of those before going into each room and try to take those skills that I use before stepping foot into those rooms that I have to hold space with others and
Creating that
different
gap
capacities. Mm-hmm.
from one thing to the next. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
definitely. Um, for those that, is it okay
Yeah.
what you to tell what you do now? Because you haven't
For the
mentioned it.
time being, yes, you could share.
So she has finished she's an MSW, social worker or licensed social worker working in the Med-Surg hospital in Houston, Texas. So I didn't know, I wanted to connect that dot for everyone.
Yeah,
Um,
so I work at a hospital in Houston that is the med-surg units covering 56 beds.
Thank you for your clarification.
Yeah.
So thinking back about those early experiences with Natural Freedom when we got started, we used a lot of existing resources to get started. Do you have any vivid teenage memories about your experiences in, let's start with facilities. Some
Yeah.
because as we were opening up our home to the
Mhm.
public, we had some changes we had to make.
Yes. And I recall very vividly being very upset where my things were as a teenager to go get my horse. I
I
do
do
recall
remember
that.
that. You,
Trying to figure out where you put everything or whoever put anything or why they touched my thing. Yeah. As a teenager, I was very,
I
very
do remember.
curious where my things were because it was about me as a teenager.
I think the change was tough all around,
hmm It
not
was.
just for you guys, but for all of us, you know. Welcoming people into our home at first to get started and having to put everything away. So we had a restroom that we could use,
Yeah.
welcoming into the living room so we had heat when it was cold. That was a drastic change from us living on the farm and being so not isolated, but so independent and on our own and not having so many people around all the time unless they was invited in.
And I think that was a difference too, is because I remember when we were growing up, the we never locked the door. And that was a shift too, is going from that to, oh, where are the keys to remember how to get in? Because I mean, obviously there was a shift also, in the world and space at that time too. But it was more so we were adjusting to making sure to lock the door for clients that thought that they could just go in. But I do remember vividly I think one of my core memories starting Natural Freedom was coming home from school. You were in the living room with a client. I don't remember if there was somebody else there, but I remember Cameron and we were very frustrated that we had to share our space coming home from school while you all were and wondering where everything was at in the bathroom and the knives, where the knives went, so I could cut something from an after school snack. Yeah. It was very disruptive to my teenage life.
We appreciate your patience.
Uh-huh.
With hindsight, do you think it was worth it?
Yes, most certainly. I do
In
think.
what regard?
I think uh, there's a lot of pieces that make it worth it, but I think as a on an individual level, I think it helped fully understand that even if you have your things going on, opening up and being supportive to others, on my personal level, um, and then also helping and making sure and being creative. I think that you all have definitely, at least from my perspective, has always done that. And that was just more ingrained going into that venture of natural freedom. And seeing firsthand the actual adaptations that you utilize from your rec degree and seeing you all work together outside of just the ventures that you all did beforehand and really implementing them in a new way. It was really beautiful to see, but also I think it helps grow as a later adult, help grow um, and fully understanding to grow into the person that I am on a personal level. On a professional level, I wouldn't be where I'm at without Natural Freedom because I wouldn't have gone this venture. I was looking into something way different as a teenager
Sure.
than uh, and so yeah, I couldn't imagine my life any other way.
Thanks. Thanks for sharing that.
Mhm.
Do you have anything that you'd like to add to this conversation? We're going to be chatting more as, like you said, your profession had kind of evolved through this process. So we're going to chat a few more times. through your evolution of your profession, but would you like to add anything today?
Um, I really think that the only thing that I have would be that I'm glad I figured out how to share my items.
Me too.
It took a lot of time and
Yes.
a lot of lessons of a lot of lessons. I'll just leave it at that.
Giving and receiving is definitely two different lessons.
Yes, that was a very
Um,
difficult lesson for me as a
and
teenager and a little bit into adult.
and I know you guys loved the jigsaw puzzle, the stands for the front of the barn when we got started. So
Oh my goodness. That okay, that was a solid core memory. That was I
We're
don't
so
even know
mad.
where to begin on that. Why was I wasting my weekend? This is my thought as a teenager. I'm wasting my weekend putting together a puzzle piece of rocks. Yay!
It was a team
It
building
made no
project.
sense. She
but
was trying
but
really
it
hard
turned
to
out
make it fun.
beautiful
It
when the
was not
grass
fun.
grew up between them
Indeed, it was
and it
not fun at
worked.
all. You're lucky
It's
I had had a high school boyfriend that was strong enough to help all those two.
oh shoot.
Because between yeah, it was.
That was a very memorable day.
So fun. A lot of jigsaw pieces.
Uh-huh.
A lot of anger,
Uh-huh.
frustration. Oh
But it was a team building. Did we have fun in the end?
no, absolutely not.
Come on.
No, no fun was had.
Did it teach you how to be resourceful?
Oh yeah, most certainly did. Because that mud puddle was gone for the most part. Still had spots.
Oh my goodness. Well, on that note,
I think this is going to be fun, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun to talk to you within different points of the last 20 years because you have been such an intricate piece in this, whether it was just your experience as a teenager or helping us move forward in all the things that you've done, which we're going to hear about later. So this is going to be cool. So thank you.
I know, yes, thank you so much. I do know that we work with a lot of teenagers that think the coping skills are really stupid at the beginning and do not want any part of them. And so
See, that's developmentally that is appropriate.
right. But my hope is that if they would ever, or even the parent listens to this, they'll see that it's the struggle of getting through that is important and it's valuable. And so it's really interesting for us to see and talk to people that reflect back and share their story about how the coping skills could help them in later life. So I do appreciate you being willing to share that.
Of course.
Well, until the next time,
Mhm.
um, I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
We'll see you.